vertical, longitudinal, and lateral. The vertical axis is actually, if you were to take a look at the assume a center point on the aircraft, the vertical axis goes basically vertically up and down through, for the lack of a better word, we'll say the center of gravity, and that's not perfectly correct, but it's close enough for what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The longitudinal axis runs from the bow to the stern of the aircraft, okay, and also through the vertical axis. And the lateral axis runs from wingtip to wingtip. And if you look at the controls, your rudder rotates you around the vertical axis. So if you turn the rudder this way, the aircraft is going to go, tail is going to go back and forth, so it's rotating around the vertical axis. If you look at aileron control, ailerons control roll, and roll is controlled over the longitudinal axis. So you've got the axis that runs from the bow to the stern of the aircraft, longitudinal controls roll, and pitch is lateral. In other words, you may recall I had said that the axis is from one wingtip to the other. Okay. Well, pitch is controlled over the lateral axis of the aircraft. And you've got all three of these particular forces. Well, you've got all three of these axes that are going through each other at a center point, normally somewhere around the center of gravity of the aircraft. So that when you want to climb an aircraft, for example, you're increasing your pitch. If you want to climb an aircraft, you also have to add power, but that's a different story. It's not a different story, but that's something additional that you have to think about. If you want to descend, you can descend by decreasing your pitch or just giving slight pressures forward on the elevators or the stick. And additionally, you can also reduce your power. So basically, for example, to climb, if you're taking off and you're climbing, you're going to have full power. The bottom line is that if you're flying along and you want to climb and you increase the pitch and you don't change the power, at some particular point in time you're going to run out of power and the airplane is going to start decreasing in speed and eventually it'll stall. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there are three axes. Now, are you going to have this on the uncoordinated?
I have it uncoordinated, though my rudder pedals need a little work. They're not doing very well.
Yeah, okay.
It will be
We may not be able to demonstrate that P factor, okay? I think probably the best way to demonstrate it is if you're carrying, if you have it in uncoordinated mode and you're climbing out, and in the Archer, just to refresh my memory here on climb out, you're going to climb, you're going to rotate at about in the aircraft at 60 to 75. You're going to accelerate to about 60 to 75 miles an hour depending on the weight of the aircraft, and then you're going to climb out at something on the order of actually the best rate in the Archer is at 87 miles an hour. Okay. If you don't have to get up quickly, an en route climb would be 100 miles an hour. So a nice climb to use in the Archer is 100. Okay. And the point that I'm getting at is that you will notice P factor, centrifugal force, asymmetrical disk loading, God knows what else, particularly when you're at a very high angle of attack and high power. So if we can do that, that'd be nice to do.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much it all applies to teaching FS4, but
well,
I need to know, especially probably for FS5, because in FS5 we're going to be able to adjust the all those things.
Yeah.
The prop.
So you'll be able to, you'll have a constant speed prop on it. Good.
That's
Right.
kind of interesting.
We can get, yeah, that is interesting. It's kind of, another thing about constant speed props is that it's very easy to forget that that sometimes you have to make adjustments in it. Additionally, one of the things that you find sometimes is that, and it's almost second nature, where if you're cruising along and you want to enter into a climb, obviously to have a sustained climb, if you're going to want to gain more than just a few feet, you have to apply power, and when you apply power, before you do that, you have to enrich the mixture, because the mixture keeps the temperature of the engine
started here.
Okay. Okay, that was a good startup. Now do you want to go on up?
Sure, I'll do a quick run up. What city in Norwood here?
Okay.
Do you recognize the field there at all?
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, so basically on the ground check, you're going to bring your throttle up to 2,000 RPM. And then you're going to check the magnetos, and you're looking for 175 RPM drop on each one with a maximum drop of
We'll work on this. Huh?
50 RPM. Let's see.
Here's my left.
Okay.
My right.
You have to go back to the
I have to go back to both.
Okay.
Right.
Good. So the mags check out okay. All right. You're going to check, do you have a suction gauge on this airplane?
No.
Okay. All right. You're going to check your oil temperature, your oil pressure. This airplane doesn't have an air conditioner, but you're also going to check your engine instruments. They're actually in the grain. And, of course, your fuel gauges have been checked beforehand. Now what you want to do is you want to check carburetor heat. And you're going to get a drop on that. And if you have carburetor icing, didn't look like it had any effect, but in an actual aircraft, did it?
Yeah, what?
Okay, just a little bit, yeah.
About 100.
Okay, all right, but the bottom line is that if you have carburetor ice, what happens is when you put the carburetor heat on, the RPMs go down, and then if you eliminate if you do indeed have carburetor ice, your engine is going to assume an RPM a little bit faster than what you started out with because it indicates that there's a carburetor ice. Additionally, one other thing before we leave is to check the carburetor heat with the engine at idle to make sure the aircraft doesn't stall. Good. Okay. I think we're ready to fly. Exercise the controls. You're going to go make sure they're free and correct. And also pitch. Excellent. Trim tab all set?
Yep.
Okay, we're ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to accelerate the aircraft to, in this particular case, we'll assume the aircraft is light. So 65 to 75 miles an hour. So taxi into position.
I'm going to ignore that jet that's coming in.
And that was 60 to 75 miles an hour. And it's better to rotate a little bit faster and a little bit slower. I liked in the Archer, I liked about 65 to 70 miles an hour. You're going to do one final check of the controls and make sure they're correct. Check everything, make sure it's in the green. Let this Learjet here land, and then we're off. Now, in an actual aircraft, you may or may not be able to notice that when you take off, you have to carry some right rudder to compensate for that P-factor, asymmetrical disk loading, and torque effect from the engine. This may or may not be the actual case here on this particular simulator.
This flight sim does show that.
Okay,
Okay,
fine.
I'm going to take it up there.
Okay. All right, now you're accelerating through. You make a quick check of the gauges. Everything's in the green. Back up to the runway. You want to stay lined up with the center line of the runway. That's it. Great. Airspeed is increasing now. The aircraft wants to fly. Back just a bit on the control wheel. That's it. Nice and easy. Now what you're going to do is you're going to accelerate to your best rate of climb. We don't have to worry about obstacles here. So that's 87 miles an hour. That's a nice airspeed right about now. Okay? Climb out at 87 miles an hour. You notice we have a nice rate of climb here. That's actually a little bit high for...
I got to pause it for a second?
Sure. And why don't I
Let me
use
at
your-
the door.
Let me use your...
Go right ahead. I'll pause this too.
You have a phone down here?
Yep, right there. Feel free.
Great. Okay.
We're in 508, so...
Hey, Dave. Hey, Walt Frisbee. How are you? Good. I need, let's see, 4 great divides divided into 5s for pickup at around 11:15. Yeah, and just mix them up. You know, we got tuna. Put an Italian in there. Let's see, what else here can we do? Turkey, and let's see. Give me a suggestion. Yeah, roast beef's okay. Condiments on the side. I'd like chips. They'll be cut and individually wrapped as they always are. And I want you to dress them except for, let's see, put lettuce and tomato, but put everything else on the side. And I'll see you at about 11:15. Great, thanks. Bye. Walter
Hi,
Frisbee?
John Paul Raymond?
John Paul, how are you? Nice to see you.
Paul,
Pleasure. Nice
Walter,
to see you.
right?
Yes. Yep. How's it
Walter
going?
is a CFI and a flight sim buff on a slower machine now, you know.
Yeah.
And
How'd you like that?
one of these is yours, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Also a Navy guy. He's a chief in at Naval Air Station when he used to be there, right?
Somebody did a poster for the Raven.
Right.
You ought to see
I'll
the
tell you
original
more about
picture.
this
The
guy.
picture
Yeah,
is
that-
awesome.
it's all in oils, which kind of
It's
interesting.
oil. Yeah, that is oil. Yeah.
So, we're going to go on here because Walter doesn't have
Yes.
a lot of time. So, but the one with the names and addresses on the back is yours. Okay. So let me unpause this baby and hope we're running. Yes, we are. Okay, so we're on climb out here.
All right, so at this particular point, we're maintaining the best rate of climb of 87 miles an hour. Once we get up to 700 or 800 feet, you can decrease your pitch to a cruise climb of 100 miles an hour.
Okay, that's that coming down.
Yep.
And the airspeed.
What I want you to do is I want you to go up to 2,500 feet. And the rule of thumb is to, when you want to do a level off, to take your rate of climb, 10% of your rate of climb, and that's about how many feet ahead of where you want to level off to that you want to be. For example, we're climbing right now at about 1,000 feet a minute. So that if we start leveling off about 100 feet before we get to our 2,500 feet, we're going to be in good shape.
Now, how did you come up with that figure?
It's around 10%
of your
around
rate of
10%
climb.
rate of climb, somewhere around. That's the general.
Just a rule of thumb.
Yep. Got a nice rate of climb. We'll head to the north. Actually, we probably should head out to the west to avoid the Needham Towers there. So why don't you turn left to a heading of 270.
Standard turn or half standard?
Standard turn. You make all turns standard rate except for on final approach when you're on a precision approach when the half standard rate is using instruments.
A little back stick here to kind of...
Absolutely, because what happens is when you enter into a turn, you're going to your lift vectors are going to change. Now you'll notice we're coming through 2100
What did you
feet
ask me to
now.
come to? Sorry.
270 westerly. All right. Now we're passing through 2200, and actually this is going to be interesting because you're going to, as soon as you
All at the same time.
Yep. Okay, you're at 270 now. You really actually should try to anticipate your turn. That's okay. That's fine. That's no problem. Well, that's your mag compass. You really want to go by your gyro compass. All right, start leveling off. Pitch down. Now what we're going to do is to properly level off an aircraft, you're going to allow your speed to increase to what your selected value is. In this particular case, you're looking at knots. The Archer tends to cruise, as I recall, somewhere around 120. All right, rate of climb is decreasing. You're up to where you want to go. Now decrease your RPMs to about 2,400. Let's see what that gets us. All right. Once you get established, then what you need to do is trim the control pressures off of the control wheel so that you can fly straight and level. And what we're going to do is we're going to fly a box pattern up, and I actually started the timer when you started your turn, and about we'll be flying left-hand patterns to demonstrate a few things here. So get it all trimmed up, and when you're ready, you tell me.
Flight sim takes a moment to...
That's okay. No problem.
Hopefully that trim function will be improved on our next version. Okay, I'm here.
Okay, great. The first thing that I want to do is, I was telling you a minute ago that when you make a turn, what happens is, let's back up. When you're going straight and level, all of your forces are equal: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. Okay. When you're in a turn, and basically all of your forces are basically it's vertical. All right. When you go into a turn, what happens is you deflect the forces. For example, if you go into a left turn, you're going to take some of that balanced lift, or that balanced effect that you've created, and you're going to lose some lift, because your vector is now, instead of it being vertical, it's going to be basically going at an angle one way or the other. To compensate for that loss of lift in an actual aircraft, what you need to do is you have to increase pitch. Now, at a medium bank turn, which actually a 3 degree per second turn wouldn't. By the way, 3 degrees per second translates to around 12 degrees on the attitude indicator there. You'll have very, very slight loss of lift, and it doesn't require a heck of a lot of compensation to compensate for the loss of lift. But go ahead and make a left turn. Just start a left turn. I'll call it. And establish a standard rate turn, 3 degrees per second. And you'll notice down here at the turn and bank indicator, you're in the doghouse. That means your wing, the wing of the little airplane there, is right on the line. That's called the doghouse, in the doghouse. And you want to keep the turn coordinated. Step on the ball there a little bit, Tom.
Yeah, it's not doing it fine.
Okay, it's not working too well, but that's okay. All right, the point is that a coordinated turn, your ball will be centered, and additionally, your wing will be on your turn and bank indicator will be in the doghouse. And you'll notice you're at around 12 degrees, okay? Why don't you roll out now, and basically anticipate your turns. In a 3 degree per second turn, 10 or 15 degrees is enough of an anticipation usually.
To roll out to the
Right.
course you want to
That's a nice heading. Now what I want you to do is I want you to decrease your speed to 80 miles an hour, all right? Now, to decrease your speed to 80 miles an hour, you're going to have to do two things. First of all, you're going to have to decrease the power of the engine, all right? And let's try 1,500 RPM. See what that does. I'm not sure what it's going to do on this. Maintain 2,500 feet. Increase your pitch, all right? And by the way, on the attitude indicator, you'll notice, I believe that this is 10 degrees right here. Your typical general aviation aircraft on a high-performance climb-out would be somewhere around 10, 12 degrees. That would be at about 10. Now, we want to maintain our altitude, okay? And we're climbing a little bit. Let's see what it does. Airspeed is decreasing slightly. We're at 1,500 RPM. BSI is indicating 0. Okay, what I want you to do now is I want you to decrease your RPMs to 1,300. Let's see what that does. We're experimenting now. Straight and level flight, 80 miles an hour. Now what I want you to do,
pretty close.
that's pretty good, okay. All right, so that's going to give you 80 miles an hour. We have a rule of thumb in flying, I call it the 17, 19, 2200 rule for a fixed pitch prop. And a Cessna and a Warrior or an Archer would be very similar. If you want to climb at 500 feet a minute, straight and level, would be, in this particular case, at 100 miles an hour, would probably be somewhere in the order of 1,700 to 1,800 RPM. All right? This is where I come up with the 17, 19, 22. If you want to maintain, and each aircraft is different. I'm just giving you a general rule of thumb. But each aircraft, depending on where you put the position of the controls, and depending on the power, will fly at straight and level at 1,900, let's say 1,900 RPM, 100 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, we could even go to 1,900 RPM if you wanted to, and see if we can maintain 100 miles an hour. And this will actually, which would be about 95 knots, by the way. You've got 100 miles knots here. You want to bring about 90, I don't know, 90, 92, 95, somewhere around there. But let's see what we can do here. Maintain 2,500 feet. And you notice that when you put the power on, of course, the airplane wants to climb. That's how an airplane climbs. And we'll demonstrate the 17, 19, 22 rule.
down,
Yeah, trim the airplane up, and you can see here that in this particular case we've got it at 1900, and that actually the aircraft tends to be flying a little bit higher speed. So let's decrease it to 1700 and see what that does. And if I'm not making sense at any time, just let me know. We want to maintain altitude now.
So that's
And
about
fly it up.
17.
Now that should bring it back to just under 100 knots. I should think anyway. Let's see what it does. Now I don't want you to go below 2,500 feet. So you're going to increase your pitch. And you're maintaining a nice heading of about 154, 153, somewhere around there. Okay, okay, that actually looks pretty good. So we're at what, 1,700 RPM right now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, once we get stabilized at 2,500 feet now at this speed, we're going to demonstrate the 17, 19, 2,200 rule. And we use this on instrument approaches when you're coming in on an ILS or even if you're on a non-precision approach. What you'll do is you know that if you set the aircraft at 1,700 RPM and it's straight and level, that you're going to have, in this particular case, about 92 miles an hour. I'm sorry, 92 knots, which is somewhere on the order of 100 miles an hour. Now what I want you to do is, now remember we're at 1,700 RPM. We want to get down at 500 feet per minute, okay? Reduce your power to 1,500 RPM. Now let's see, and keep your airspeed the same. And let's see what we're going to do. Let's see what's going to happen. The vertical speed indicator should shortly indicate a descent. Whether or not it's at 500 feet per minute, I don't know, but it should. It may be that we may have to alter that 17, 19, 22 a little bit.
Being flight sim.
Okay. Well, no, okay, we'll decrease it to 1,400. Let's see what that does. We want to maintain about 95 knots. What we're doing is we're experimenting now, okay? Now you can see our rate of descent is increasing. Airspeed's increasing a little bit, back on the pitch just a bit.
Almost at 1,500, 500 feet per minute.
And you're a little bit fast. Now, remember, we're trying to descend right now, at 500 feet per minute. Now, what will happen is you've increased your pitch slightly, and the airspeed should decrease, vertical speed should increase, and it's increasing slightly, okay? And what you're doing is you're looking at trends, too. If the vertical speed indicator is going around like that, it means that you're going to pass through where you want. But in this particular case, you're a little bit fast. Get it back to 95. That's good. Vertical speed is increasing, and that should peg just fairly close to 500 feet, if I'm not mistaken, and it is. Okay. Now, I want you to go back to straight and level, 1,700 RPM, which means you're going to increase the power, and you're also going to increase your pitch to level off at 95 knots, or 100 miles an hour. Once we get there, then what we're going to do is we're going to go into a climb, a 500 foot per minute climb, and how are we going to do that?
By increasing our power
To
and holding our pitch at 2,200?
22,
17, 19, 22,
right.
I got it. 19, we'll do it, right?
17, I'm sorry, because we were a little bit low here, so
Right,
try 14, 17, and try 19. I mean, we'll just try it. We'll experiment.
Yeah.
All right, when you get to...
18, 19 right there.
Okay.
And we're climbing at about 600, 700 feet a minute at 92 knots, about.
Okay, so if we decrease our RPMs by 100 RPM, that's a little bit too much. Let's see what that does.
That's a lot of stick to.
Yep. One of the things about flying a flight simulator is that obviously you don't have the stick forces that you normally would have when you're flying the aircraft.
Looks like about 15, yeah, it looks like about 17 with a 300 foot climb at 98 knots or so.
Right. What I'm trying to do here is get you used to the fact that if you set the power at a certain setting and have the pitch angle at a certain pitch angle, the aircraft is going to do a certain thing. That's what the important issue is here. Not so much the 17, 19, or 22, or 14, 17, and 19, but the fact that if you set it at certain parameters, the aircraft will do what you want it to do, okay? Now you're at a relatively slow speed. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn left, and I'll call a turn, all right? While you're at it, just to make things more complicated, I want you to level off at 2,700 feet. Make it 2,800 feet. We're going to turn to a heading of east.
So is being in the doghouse a good thing? If you mentioned that
It's
before?
perfect. Being in the doghouse is perfect outside of the final approach course. On the final approach course, if you're on an instrument approach, we're going to take up an easterly heading. All right, so start correcting. If you're on a precision approach, an instrument approach, then you should make your turns at half standard rate or 1.5 degrees per second. That gives you more time to watch the needles. Obviously, you're trying to divide your attention. Now, I want you to get established in a 100 mile an hour, 95 knot straight level, and we're going to do some turns here. And what we'll do is I think we'll demonstrate the loss of lift created by a turn, and this time instead of making a 3 degree per second turn, we're going to turn at a steeper rate, which means your turn and bank indicator is not going to indicate a standard rate turn, but it's actually going to be significantly more, okay? So when you're ready, you let me know. And we're going to
straight and level.
right. I want you to enter a 30 degree turn, which is right over to that left 30 degrees. Now notice that the doghouse, we passed 12 degrees, now we're going by the doghouse. Notice, you can see already your nose is dropping. So you have to compensate for that loss in lift. You can compensate in two ways. The first way is to increase your pitch, which is what you normally do. The second way, you could do it also, is to increase your power a little bit. As a matter of fact, when we used to do steep 720s, which are steep turns, the old rule of thumb used to be to make it a little bit easier to maintain your altitude. You'd increase your RPMs once you were passing through about 45 degrees by about 100 RPM. But that's not recommended now. You can level up, straighten out at about 180, start your correction now, because remember, you have to anticipate. And you notice that when you come out of the turn, that lift that you lost, all of a sudden it's come back. And you've got to compensate for that, which means to apply forward pressures to the stick to bring the lift vectors back to basically you're trying to, on straight and level, you're trying to establish a neutral lift vector. Is this making sense to you?
Yeah, it is. And that's just what I did. As I turned back, I had to apply some forward pressure on the controls.
Okay. Now what I want you to do is, let's try some slow flight here, all right? What I want you to do is I want you to decrease your speed to 70 miles an hour. Straight and level. Now, just as in a real aircraft, when you're turning the flight simulator here, at slow speed, your turning radius is much, you're able to turn much more quickly, but also the aircraft is not as responsive and feels kind of sloppy. And I think you can probably sense that now with the controls. Why don't you try a turn to the right this time to a heading of 210, standard rate turn. And I want you to anticipate your turn. Okay, so right to 210.
210?
Yep. Standard rate turn. Anticipate your turn. You want to, say about 20 degrees ahead of time, you want to start thinking about rolling out, okay? Which means right about now, you want to start nice and easy, easy correction back. And that was not a steep turn, so, okay? In this particular case, at 3 degrees per second, a 10 degree lead out might be good. All right? You notice how sloppy it feels and how control response doesn't seem to be the same way as if you're flying along a cruise.
So it's
Now what I want you to do is, if you'll notice your pitch attitude there, I want you to keep that bar on the dot. We'll call the long orange thing the bar, and the dot is the lines on the AI, the attitude indicator, okay? And I want you to retard your power all the way. And let's see what happens. Your airspeed is decreasing, vertical speed is increasing, airspeed continues to decrease, and we're going to stall momentarily, I would imagine, okay? The aircraft is going slower. The aircraft is becoming also more difficult to control. All right, now we've stabilized. They're almost at about 55 knots, okay, which is just a shade above the stall speed of this aircraft. What I want you to do is I want you to increase your pitch up to the second, put the bar on the second dot. That's as far as it'll go, huh? Okay, all right. All right, there you go. You're going to go into a stall. And look what happens. Okay, recover from the stall. Nose forward, full power on the recovery. You don't want to go through the red line, by the way, in your airspeed. There you go. Okay. First thing you do when you get a stall is nose forward, full power, and bring it back to flying. So that should be responsive. As soon as that's as soon as that stall occurs, get that pitch forward. Bring it back to 2,500. Start your level off at about 50 feet ahead of time. General rule of thumb, 10% of your rate of climb. Okay, and bring it up to normal cruise speed. And we'll check the log here, see what the performance says as far as normal cruise for the Archer, because I forget.
it's about 130, 125, 130.
Somewhere around there.
Seatbelt on, Jack, please.
Oh. Why don't you maintain about 2,500 RPM? That'll give you around 75% power for this altitude.
It gets time for my engine work, though. I can't go above about 24.
What's that?
Won't go above about 24.
Try a carburetor heat.
Slow me down.
Okay, so retard the power to 24. Well, that's close enough. 2,400 RPM. As you go higher, you require more throttle to maintain the same amount of power. General rule of thumb is that if you had a manifold pressure gauge, and you actually do here, if you notice in a climb, that for every 1,000 feet you go up, your manifold pressure is going to decrease by 1 inch. Okay. As a matter of fact, on the ground, your manifold pressure is indicating approximately the barometric pressure at ground. If that makes sense to you.
Yes.
Okay, now the next thing that we want to do is let's see what effect utilization of flaps has on your aircraft. Okay. Now remember that aircraft have maximum operating speeds for landing gear. In the case of the Archer, obviously there are no landing gears; they're down and welded. But in the case of retractable gear, there are airspeed limitations for putting down gear, and there are airspeed limitations for putting down flaps. Now, in the Archer, I don't recall, I do recall, it's about 100 miles an hour before you should put the flaps down. I stand to be corrected on that. I haven't flown an Archer in a while. Okay, so decrease your speed to 100 miles an hour, straight and level, at 2,700 feet. And when you're ready, you tell me, okay?
I'm there.
Okay. You're straight and level at 100 miles an hour. Your vertical speed indicator is is indicating 0, and there's obviously going to be some variance. What I'd like you to do is to maintain altitude. No, what I'd like you to do is to put down the flaps 1 notch. Let's see what happens to the airplane. The aircraft pitches up. All right, I want you to put another notch down.
In flight sim, your next notch is 20, so
Okay.
the next notch goes to 30.
Okay. Notice that you've got a pitch change there, and that's going to happen with an actual aircraft. Now what's happening is you've got some oscillations there. Basically, you've got stability. An aircraft tries to maintain its stability, and you notice that the nose, after pitching up for a while, just started to go down again.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Well, that's the same thing not only with the simulator here, but also with the aircraft, and you're maintaining a nice, actually a rate of climb, although you generally are not going to climb with flaps, you're going to descend with flaps. What you'll want to do is, I want you to start a glide at 80 miles an hour, and let's see now. By the way, the correct flap settings on 100 knots, you can utilize flaps in the Archer, 100 knots or less, all right? What I'd like you to do is to set up an 75 knot glide. Really got to get that nose forward, don't you? Because the airplane wants to continue to fly. Now, you have at the present time 20 degrees of flaps.
Right.
All right?
Which I would tend never to use 20.
Why?
Because the controls on flight sim go 0, 10, 30, 40.
Right. Keep in mind that in an aircraft, a light aircraft, a Cessna type or an Archer type, that the first couple of notches of flaps are going to increase lift. And then the last couple of notches are going to increase drag, which is what I'd like to do. I want to increase drag. Let's put down 30 degrees of flaps and see what that does. I want you to maintain your altitude, too. Not maintain your altitude, but maintain your airspeed of 75 knots. And you can see...
Got to put like nose down.
Right. When you put the flaps down, particularly in a Cessna, not as much in an Archer, but in a Cessna, you're going to go down. I'll put them down one more notch. We've got full flaps now. All right. Pure drag. You're operating on pure drag. And basically what happens when you put the flaps down is they extend what's called the chord of the aircraft, actually what's called the mean aerodynamic chord of the wing. All right, which basically is going to give you more. It gives you more lift and also more drag. You got pure drag right now working on it, and that's the reason why you're descending.
This home for you.
Okay. And why don't we start heading that way? And we'll do a normal pattern. All patterns are to the left. Descend to about, let's use 1,200 feet for pattern altitude for the airport. Now, which direction we take off in?
We took off 360.
Okay, runway 36. Because all runways are labeled magnetic inbound, right?
Oh, yeah?
Magnetic course inbound?
Inbound, right.
To the nearest 5 degrees.
Good.
However,
Five, huh?
however, for example, if it said 004, it'd be runway 36. If it was 006, it'd be, the actual runway heading was 006, it'd be runway 01. Runway 10, runway 20 is 020, runway 3 is 030, runway 18 is 180. So you're descending to about 1,200 feet.
Plymouth is the only airport I have that no one's done any aircraft and senior design work on. Yeah.
I can hardly wait to see it. That's where I fly out.
Nels did a little bit.
Did he? I don't have it. No.
If you've got the Cape Cod scenery file, those 3 files that you made, Plymouth is in there.
Oh, I do. Gee, maybe it will come in.
In this particular case, instead of landing on 33, we're going to land on the primary runway at Plymouth, which is 24, if we could.
How do I know how far away I am from that airport? Just by
You're
looking.
fairly close. You're within probably 5, 6 miles.
Any rules of thumb on that?
I've been trying to figure it out for 30 years.
The only one I've read about is if, I don't know if it doesn't apply to flight film, but if you're in an aircraft, if you're looking out the nose, flying straight and level, for every 1,000 feet above the ground, you're 1 mile away from the runway. As a kind of a general type.
It's really tough. It's sort of like trying to maintain your distance from clouds. The rule of thumb is 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. I haven't been able to figure it out.
How far away they are, huh?
Yeah, that's right. It's really a tough situation.
Is it when the inspector asks you, tell him you were 1,000 feet away,
Right.
above or whatever?
And actually, Tom, we're coming in on basically an extended downwind leg for 24. Why don't you make sure that your DG and your magnetic compass are properly aligned, and they are, okay? And let's see what happens here.
12, bring it down to 1,200?
1150 is the pattern altitude at Plymouth, so why don't we use the proper pattern altitude?
And I'm still at full flaps, so it's
Yeah, why don't you put the flaps back up? That might be a nice thing. And compensate for that, There you go, look at that, huh? 100 miles an hour, by the way, is a nice rate, a nice airspeed to use in the pattern. That's the speed I used to like to use when I'm flying the Archer.
okay.
And actually, it's the airspeed I kind of like to use even when I'm in the movie. 100 knots. It's good airspeed.
What's the airspeed in the pattern?
Well, I like to be at an airspeed with which you can safely put down the flaps and not, or the landing gear, and not exceed limitations. You'll notice we're getting closer now. We're on downwind now. We're going to perform our landing checks, okay? So we know the gas is on the fullest tank. In this particular case, our wheels are down and welded. Mixture should be full rich, and our fuel pump should be on at this particular point. And I want you to just go through the normal landing procedure yourself. Okay?
Okay.
Beam the touchdown point is where you'll normally, now we're coming up, this is runway 24 here, but a beam the touchdown point is when you want to retard the power. In this particular case, maintain an airspeed of around 80, 85 miles an hour until you turn on to 80 miles an hour is a good airspeed. Actually, use 80 knots. Okay, you're coming up on your point. Power is retarded to about, I don't know, 1,500 RPM. Let's see what that does. Remember that 17, 19, 22
Yeah.
rule? Why don't we try to use that?
Okay, it's 15.
Okay, that's good. Flaps, first notch your flaps. Actually, okay, compensate for it. Maintain about 80 knots or so. It's a good airspeed. On final, we're going to shoot for about 66 knots. That's your final approach speed with full flaps.
I'm going to cut my power back a bit because I'm going to
No
climb
problem.
for 15.
No problem. Okay.
See a lot of lift out there.
Could be. All right. Turn base anytime. When you turn base, what you'll want to do is you'll want to put down another notch of flaps. You don't commit to final flaps. In other words, complete drag until you know you have the runway made. Really important. If you lose the engine, you want to be able to make the runway.
To get some lift out of front.
Well, as you know, the first couple of notches of flaps are lift. You're getting lift. But once you put down more, it's going to create drag.
Right.
All right, and you can just fly the normal pattern, Tom. Beautiful. All right, Plymouth 1 Papa Foxtrot, turning final runway 24.
A little high.
That's okay. Let's see where we roll out first. Okay, we're high. Put down another notch. Oh, well, hold it. No, disregard that. We're at 30 degrees of flaps now.